I'll just share my screen so everyone can see what I'm looking at. I'm ignoring the chat from now on, obviously, but I'll read it when I can. Okay, so welcome everybody to the combined Australia-New Zealand virtual tug. We've got basically everyone from Wellington and Auckland, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, and I'm hoping to have some Perth people on as well, so covering the full coverage of the two countries. And we're still expecting people, and we can still see people streaming in the door, but that'll be good. This meeting is being recorded, and you can access the recording shortly after this for all the people that have missed out as well. So just some intros and welcome. We'll be talking today to Ken and Kevin Flerlage. They'll do a presentation on something a little bit obscure, a little bit random, and a lot useful. So they'll be switching screens for that. We'll then have a presentation from Prerna, Anita, and Maria about 1 year in their Tableau team, some other announcements and some hiring and some virtual networking, some job opportunities, if you're interested in that sort of thing. At the end, please stay before the close because we'll be giving away a prize, and we'll discuss more about the prize at that stage, but one lucky person will be taking away some swag at the end of this as well. I'll just do an acknowledgement of country. In the spirit of reconciliation, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and their connections to our land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to the elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who have joined us here today. So introducing Ken and Kevin, I have been holding off on this for quite a while because I would like to extend a happy birthday to both of these guys. It's the 2nd of August in the States, and what do they do on their birthday night is they come and celebrate with us. So happy birthday, guys. Hope you enjoyed the day.
Happy birthday.
Yes.
So grateful. Thanks for joining us.
Our pleasure.
You might have thought you were going to get away
Thank
with
you.
it, but I was waiting until we're actually in the meeting. Yeah.
Can we sing?
We can sing, definitely. Do you want to lead, Fred?
In French, maybe?
Yep, go for it.
I'm a poor singer.
But you can see the chat is now full of happy birthday. It was all over Twitter. I knew it was happening. I just wanted to wait to actually wish them both a happy birthday in person. You've definitely helped my Tableau career and obviously countless of thousands of tens of thousands of people around the world as well. So both Ken and Kevin are Zen Masters and Tableau Ambassadors. Ken is the Assistant Director of Data Analytics at Bucknell University, and Kevin is the Manager of BI at Unifund CCR. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to these guys to do their presentation of what they're going to do today.
Thanks so much, Chris. I'm going to share my screen, I think. You'd think you'd have this all figured out after so long doing this, but all right. Can everybody see my slides okay?
Yep, they're coming up now.
All right, minimize you guys. All right. All right, so yes, my name is Kevin Flerlage, my brother Ken, so that's me on the left, that's Ken on the right, well, caricatures of us. We are identical twins, as Chris said. We run the website flerlagetwins.com, and we are both Tableau Zen Masters, which is an actual real thing. It's like 50 some of them in the entire world, so great honor for Tableau to recognize us as Tableau Zen Masters. Since we are identical twins, everybody always wants to know how like we are. We can kind of look at some data for that. So we can talk about where we live. We both live in the United States. We obviously grew up in the same town, but Ken went and chased a girl 20 years ago and still married to that girl. He has a couple of kids, but I live in a place called Burlington, Kentucky. It's about 20 minutes outside of Cincinnati, Ohio, a fairly big town in the US. Ken lives about 8 hours away from me in a town called Williamsport, Pennsylvania, which is 20 minutes outside of absolutely nothing. Lots of cow pastures, absolutely zero out there anywhere. Yeah. What do we like to visualize? Ken tends to visualize on Tableau Public more serious topics, things like religion, war, endangered species, and politics. Where I, on the other hand, like to hit the really, hard-hitting subjects like Adam Sandler, video games, cartoons, and famous eating competitions. If you guys don't know about this, it happens every 4th of July in the United States. They eat as many hot dogs and buns as they can in 10 minutes. This guy over here on the right ate 75 of them in 10 minutes in 2021. It's insane. Yeah. So, but the biggest question we always get is who's the best at this data viz, this Tableau thing, right? So again, we can use data to support this. A gentleman by the name of Josh Tapley used Alteryx to scrape Tableau Public and for a couple 100,000 authors. And he's tracked things like favorites and views and number of followers. So we could look at, say, number of followers on Tableau Public. Well, Andy Kriebel is always at the top of any list related to Tableau, but Andy Kriebel tops that list, but I'm in 3rd place. And Ken, a very distant 6th. I mean, pretty disappointing, Ken, how far back you are from me. Or we could look at number of favorites on Tableau Public. Andy Kriebel, again, kicking the snot out of everybody. And then you see me in 2nd, Ken in 3rd, of course. Truth is, I have to fess up. Ken passed me a few months ago, and I still haven't caught him. These numbers are a little bit outdated, but I think I'm within 100 of them. So, Ken, coming after you, bud.
It's going to be back and forth for a while.
Yeah, I think so. The truth is, Ken was a DBA before this. Ken was a programmer before this. Ken was a Zen master before I even downloaded Tableau. So if I'll own up to it and say that Ken is better than me at this stuff. And I learned a lot from Ken, and I really appreciate everything he's done. He's done as much for me, if not more, that he has for the rest of this community. So thank you, Ken. All right, we kind of went through all this. We're Zen Masters Ambassadors. We run FlerlageTwins.com. If you've never checked out FlerlageTwins.com, we put out a blog almost every week. We write about data analytics, and 90% of it focuses on Tableau. We might diverge and talk about design, or I like to use PowerPoint for images in Tableau. So we have a little bit of that, but 90% of it is really focused on Tableau, and you get typically 4 blog posts every month. So lots of content. I think we have over 300 blog posts there. So check it out if you haven't. All right, today we're going to be talking about a little obscure, a little random, and a lot useful Tableau techniques. And what does that mean? Well, we're going to be talking about techniques. We're going to go through a bunch of different stuff, kind of interrelated. They are maybe obscure, maybe random. A lot of the stuff you've seen before, some of you may have never even considered using before. But all of it's really, really useful stuff that I and probably Ken use pretty much with every dashboard. We'll be talking 4 different generalized techniques and doing a lot of stuff within there. I'll be doing 2 of them, and Ken will be doing 2 of them as well. If you want more information, it's all on our website. You can go to this URL. It has lists, links to other blog posts and things like that, where you can read about these techniques. And as we all know, this is also being recorded. But before we go, Chris already stole my thunder, but I was going to say it's a very special day because we're celebrating Ken's birthday. Happy birthday, Ken.
Yeah, thanks.
You're supposed to say happy birthday, Kevin.
Oh, yeah. Happy birthday, Kevin.
All right, thank you.
I thought that was the joke. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it was the joke. It was a joke. All right. Anyways, all right, let's get to it. Ken, I am going to pass the ball to you, and you can start us off.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. So as Kevin said, we've got a handful of different techniques that we're going to talk about with you. I've got 2 sections here. One I'm calling hidden in plain sight. I'll talk about what that means here in a minute. And then we're going to get into the order of operations, which is just one of the most critical things to know to get, to improve your Tableau skills. So first, we're going to start with some simple techniques I call hidden in plain sight. These are just some techniques that they're pretty easy to implement, but they're not, I don't see them all that often. So they're kind of obscure, and I just think they're really useful and powerful. So I just want to hit a couple of these first. So let's just jump into these. My first one is about hiding marks, right? So this is a kind of a common line chart that you might build where you've got.
Hey, Ken, you need to share your screen, bud.
Did I not share my screen? Oh,
You did
man, I
not.
hit the button and I forgot to hit the button again. All right.
We're good.
Sorry about that. All right. So here's a line chart that, we're probably all pretty used to seeing. We've got month by month, and then we're highlighting our min and max value. So this, typically what I do to do this is I'll create a calculated field, and don't worry about the details of this, but basically it's going to tell me which of these marks is the minimum, which is the max, and then everything else, right? Which are neither. And then I'll create a second calculated field, which says if it's not neither, if it's the min or the max, then give me the sales. I then use that as a dual axis, and then I drag in that dual axis, I make a circle mark, and then I drag the high-low to the color card so that I can make those different colors, right? It's not too bad, but it's a lot of extra steps, and it sure would be nice if there's an easier way. Well, there actually is a way that makes this quite a bit simpler, and so we'll start with just a chart like this. Instead of a dual axis with this new calculated field, I just have a dual axis both with sales. The second one is a circle mark, and then we have the high-low again on the color to control the color. But as you can see here, we have marks on each of them, and we don't want these gray marks on here. So instead of doing all that stuff I just showed you a minute ago, all we have to do is go to the legend, right-click on that mark we don't want, do hide, and it's gone. So this is super simple. It's a great, it's pretty easy for this line chart to do alternatives, but when you get into more complicated charts, when you're drawing curves and things like that, that is a really, really powerful technique, and definitely one worth remembering. If you hide a mark and you want to get it back, all you have to do is go to Analysis, Reveal Hidden in Data, and it will bring it right back for you. So that's hiding marks. The second one is discrete color on a table. I love this technique, and I just learned this like 6 months ago, and I was so thrilled when I learned it because it makes life so much easier. So here we have a highlight table. I'm showing subcategory versus segment sales, and we're showing the profit ratios, right? And what I wanted to do was highlight the top two, so you can see this dark is the top, and this is the next largest profit ratio, and then the bottom two in a darker orange and a light orange. And to do this it's surprisingly a little bit difficult. So what you might think to do to start is to do profit ratio to rank. So rank your profit ratios for, sorry, it's the wrong field. Rank your profit ratios as a starting point, right? And then probably you would create a calculated field that looks kind of like this. So basically, if it's my top rank, then give me top one, or if it's the next top, it's top two, and then same thing with bottom two and bottom one, and everything else is none, right? And then you would drag this to the color card that's coloring the text. So we want to change this to a square mark. And then, we kind of have the right colors in the right spots here, but they look kind of weird. So you end up sizing this, and what happens is all these marks sort of overlap each other, and you don't know what color goes with which number. So that's the problem with using a discrete pill like on this type of highlight table. So generally in the past, the way I've dealt with this is to convert that field into a continuous field. So instead of doing top one, top two, bottom one, bottom two, I just change these to numerics that are in sort of a range. And then I can drag that again to color, change it to square, and we're getting kind of close. If I click color and change this to the orange, blue, white diverging, where the middle is white, then I get exactly what I'm looking for. And this is not bad, but it feels a little bit hokey, and it's a little bit problematic if you want to make any sort of fine-tune adjustments to these colors. For example, if I wanted to make this this light blue a pink or something like that, I'd have to go out and manually create a whole new diverging color palette, and I still would probably struggle to get the right color. So it sure would be nice if I could use that simple discrete color that I showed. And this is the actual technique that I just learned that is really cool. So we're going to do the same thing. Remember, we have this discrete field with top one, top two, bottom one. We're going to drag that to color again. change to a square mark. Again, we get this problem with all these overlapping colors. Let's just make it large as we can. But the technique here is just to create a new pill on columns and rows. And it can be really kind of anything. The easiest thing to do is just double click in here and do an inline calculation. I'm just going to do an empty string, a blank. And then we'll drag this down to rows as well. And if I right click and hide the header, you can see now these are all stuck in the right spot. They're not overlapping anymore. I can click color. I can change the colors as I like. So we'll make none, 0, or blank or white. And then we can see we've got these colors, but I can then individually change each of these if I like as well. So remember, I wanted to do the second highest as pink. I can do that here very easily. I have complete finite control over there without over my colors without having to go and create all these weird diverging color palettes. So really cool technique. Again, I just learned that, and so I'm thrilled to share that with everyone here today. Last one in this section, this random section here has to do with Excel tables. So I've got this spreadsheet here that has really kind of two separate pieces of data. We've got our Russian authors information here, and then we have subcategory sales. And I've seen this from time to time, actually. My dad is just calling me on the phone, sorry about that. I've seen this from time to time particularly in these enterprise systems that want to create a nice formatted output for you. They'll cram sort of multiple tables together in an Excel spreadsheet, and then put them, and then you get this output like this. And it's really hard to then take that and work with that in Tableau. What happens if you connect to that data? Let's connect to it. What happens is it just sort of crams everything together. You can see our Russian authors information here and our subcategory sales, and it's just all crammed in this ugly table. So there are a couple of ways that we can work with this. One is to go back to Excel and select that table, and then click this Format as Table button. These are just formatting options. It doesn't matter which one we choose. Let's do the orange. Click OK here. So that's created one table in Tableau or in Excel. You can see the table name here. It's table 1. And then I do the same thing with this other table. And this one is table 2. Now let's save this. So I basically just told Excel that there are these two separate tables within my Excel spreadsheet. Now let's go back to Tableau, edit our connection, connect to that formatted spreadsheet. And what you'll see here is we still have that main tables there, but it's also read those tables out of Excel. I can work with each of those individually as their own sort of unique data set, which is really nice when you have ugly data like this. So when I was preparing this presentation, I actually stumbled on a whole lot easier way of doing this. If we go back to our original not formatted version of this, all we have to do is click Use Data Interpreter, and Tableau actually looks at that data. The data interpreter says, hey, it looks like there are two separate tables of data here. And in fact, it creates these sort of virtual tables that give us our Russian author data, as well as our subcategory sales data. So my recommendation is when you're dealing with, sort of ugly Excel data like this, try the data interpreter, see if it gives you what you want, and then you can always go back and do the formatting of this table within Excel if you like. All right, so now that we've done some sort of relatively simple random techniques, let's move on to something a little bit more technical and complicated, the order of operations. So the order of operations, in my opinion, is one of the most critical pieces of knowledge that you should have, particularly if you really want to advance your skills within Tableau. If you don't understand how the order of operations work, you're going to be constantly sort of beating your head against the wall, trying to figure out why Tableau is doing what it's doing. So what I want to show you here is a handful of techniques that allow you to bend Tableau to your will, to really make it do what you want to do by leveraging the order of operations. So before we do that, let's talk a little bit about what the order of operations is and how it works. This is the Tableau order of operations. You'll see this in lots of Tableau documentation. It starts at the top with the very first things that compute, and then at the bottom are the last things that compute. So very first thing that computes is our extract filters. The very last thing that get computed are trend lines and reference lines, and then you have a spectrum in between. So we're going to be constantly sort of referring back to this as I talk about some of these techniques. So what I'm going to share here are four techniques, four sort of common problems that I see, and how to address those by basically tricking the order of operations to do what you wanted to do. So one of them, probably the most common problem I see, has to do with fixed level of detail calculations. So what I have here is all the Superstore customers and their first order date. And first order date is a fixed LOD, basically just fixing on the customer name and getting the min order date, right? So basically it gives us the first order date. And that works great. I'm getting the exact numbers that I want, but I realize I would like to be able to drill into this a little bit more. So I've added a filter on category. So I'm hopeful that I can look at overall what their first order date is, but maybe I just want to know what their first order of technology is, right? So I can use this filter to do that. So let's uncheck these, and I notice that as soon as I'm checking these boxes, nothing's changing, right? No matter what I do, nothing changes. So when you're working with Tableau and you're seeing something like that where it's not doing what you're expecting it to do, it's very possible that you're doing
Ooh, and it's frozen.
Or what's that? I'm frozen?
No, I don't. Oh,
You're fine, Ken.
I'm fine. All right. I heard someone say you're frozen. Okay. So that's probably a pretty good clue that there's an order of operations problem. So let's take a look at the order of operations. Let's take a look at the techniques we're using on this sheet, and let's dive into that. So what we're using here are highlighted in green. We're using the fixed LOD. You can see where that is on the order of operations. And then our category filter is a dimension filter. So you can see that the fixed LOD gets computed before the dimension filter. So what's Tableau doing? It's taking the entire data set. It's finding the minimum order date for each of those customers. And then only after we've done that is it filtering the data, right? It's filtering after it finds those minimum order dates. That's not what we want. We want that category filter to apply first. And to do that, we can make that dimension filter a context filter. So let's go back, turn on all of these here, and let's right click our filter, do add to context. And now you'll see as I change these items, you'll start to see some updated dates here. So that is the most common problem I see, is fixed LODs and context filters and dimension filters. And knowing this technique is going to save you in many scenarios. A similar one has to do with top N filters. So here we have our top 15 customers and their total sales. And to do this top 15 list, I've got a filter on customer name, and I'm doing the top option, top 15, sum of sales. And so this works great. I can see my top 15 customers, but sure would be nice to be able to drill in by years, right? Maybe I want to see overall, but maybe I also want to see, who's the top customer in 2020. So I've added a filter on year, and as I start to deselect these things, you'll see some pretty clear problems. So there's actually two problems here I see. One is that I no longer have a top 15 list. Now, I know there are at least 15 customers in 2020, so why am I losing one of them? The second issue I see here is that these numbers are really low. My 14th biggest customer in 2020 only has $13 of sales. It definitely doesn't seem right. So again, this is an order of operations problem, as you might have guessed. So let's take a look at the order of operations. We're using a top N filter, which here gets computed at the same time as fixed LODs. Our year filter is a dimension filter. And so what's the solution? We move that to a context filter, just like we did with the fixed LODs. So let's come back. We'll right click our year, do add to context. And we now see 15 customers, and we're seeing some numbers that make more sense. Now, you might wonder why it dropped one of those customers. Again, if we look at the order of operations, what was happening there was that it was taking the top N of our entire data set of all 4 years of data. And then only after that were we filtering it down to a specific year. So one of my 15 overall top customers actually had no sales in 2020 at all. So when we filtered down to just 2020, they dropped off the list. And because it was the top end was getting all the data overall, it wasn't going to fill in another customer in there. So getting that order of operations is really, really critical and important. And this is, as I said, probably the second most common issue I see with the order of operations. Now let's start to talk about some little bit more complex table calculations. So everyone sort of groans when you say table calculations. I promise this one isn't too difficult. What we have here are a list of cities and states in the US, their rank. So this rank is just a table calculation here. This one right here, rank of sum of sales. And then we have the actual sales. And this works really, really great. I can see Philadelphia here in Pennsylvania in my state is ranked number 5. But I might want to be able to drill down to specific states and not just look at the US as a whole. So I've added a filter on state, as you can see here. And now let's look and see what's going on in Pennsylvania. If I check Pennsylvania, it's filtered by list to all the cities in Pennsylvania, and I've got a rank, my rank here. And this is great, but what I really want in this scenario is to keep that original rank. I want to know that Philadelphia was ranked 5th overall in the whole US. I want to know where Chester, Pennsylvania ranked in the whole US. I don't want to reestablish this rank. So let's look at the order of operations and figure out how we can do that. So again, we're going to look at which components we're using and look at them on the order of operations. We're using a table calculation for that rank down here near the bottom. And then we're using a dimension filter for the state. And you can see the dimension filter computes before the rank. So that filter is taking the data, creating a subset to just Pennsylvania, and then it's doing the ranking, right? It's doing the ranking on just that subset of data. So it doesn't know that there are other cities in the data at all. What we really want to be able to do is force this filter to happen after the table calculation. And our only option for doing that is to use a table calc filter. So I'm going to show you this little trick for forcing a dimension filter to be a table calc filter. I learned this from the brilliant Pooja Gandhi. So if we create a calculation that looks like this, we're basically using a lookup. So lookup will find a row in a previous or a future row in the partition. And this offset tells you how many to go back or forward. In this case, we're saying don't go back or forward at all, no offset at all. And the result of this is really just the state, but we forced that state to be a table calculation. So if I drag this up to state and use this as my filter, let's do off for now. Show our filter again. And then let's filter down to just Pennsylvania. You'll see that it's maintained my original rank. So again, what's happened is it's taken the whole data set, it's done that table calculation, that rank. So we get 5 for Philadelphia. And then only after we've done that, do we then filter out the other data. And this is a really cool trick that is very versatile. It can be used in all kinds of really nice scenarios. Again, we're just sort of tricking the order of operations. We're tricking Tableau into doing exactly what we want. All right, so one more before I hand off to Kevin, and that has to do with bands. And this is actually kind of similar to the technique I just shared, but we're going to take a slightly different approach. So it's often really nice to have on a dashboard one of these bands, these big ass numbers, right, that give you a picture of something that's going on. In this case, I'm showing sales growth from 2019 to 2020. You can see very clearly it's 20%. So I'm going to show you a technique for creating these where we're going to leverage the order of operations. So we're going to start with a table that's got our year, our sales, and the percent difference. So this percent difference, as you can see here, is just a quick table calculation doing percent difference. So really what we want to do is just isolate this 20 number, right? So what you might think you can do is just, well, let's just filter down to 2020, right? So you filter down to 2020 and then your percent difference goes away. And that's, again, because of the order of operations. We are using a dimension filter here. So the dimension filter is filtering it down to just to 2020, and then you're trying to do a table calculation to get the percent difference. You can't do the percent difference because 2019 isn't there, right? So again, we want to force this dimension filter down to be a table calc filter. And we could use a similar technique as we just used a moment ago, but we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to create this calculated field that uses last. So last just counts the number of rows from the last row in the partition, right? So last in this case, this last row, last is going to be 0, and this one, last will be 1. So what I'm saying is if last equals 0, if it's a last row, then true, else false, right? So last is a table calculation, so it will compute after the regular table calculation. So if we use this as a filter, just select those true ones, we'll see that it filters out the 2019, but because that's a table calc filter that computes after a table calculation, we don't lose our 20% table calculation. So now we can just hide these headers, remove the sales, we'll make it entire view, increase the size. We now have this lovely little band that we can soup up and change the font and do whatever we want with and throw it on our dashboard. Oh shoot, I hate when I create, Kev, you probably dealt with this. You create a band like this and it's using a text mark and you click on it accidentally and it creates this big blue highlight and it's just really ugly. I really wish we could turn that off somehow. I don't know, maybe you have an idea on how to do that, but that's all I have for you. As I said, the Tableau order operation is super powerful. If you really want to take your skills in Tableau up to the next level, really dive into that, understand how the order of operations work. The blog that Kevin referenced links to a more detailed blog that has a few other examples. So check that out and really dig in and understand that. And I guarantee you will be happy that you did. All right, Kevin, it's all yours.
All right, thanks, Ken. But I don't know if anybody caught the really intentional foreshadowing, but maybe we can address Ken's question here. So you see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Ken, does it look good?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So I'm going to start off soft. I don't know, not super technical. We're going to talk about navigation buttons, but more some creative use for navigation buttons. So navigation buttons were something that came out, I believe, in 2018.3. It's kind of funny that we remember all these versions of these when these new features came out, but this is really a huge functionality that didn't exist prior, and you had to kind of hack it before. So what is a navigation button to start? So let's imagine that I have two different dashboards. I have one that's called scatter plot and one that's called bar charts. Really creative. And I want to just be able to navigate between these two dashboards. Well, I can drag in a navigation button to allow me to do that. So if I just drag this onto the view, I'll just float it for now. I can edit this button. I can say navigate to the bar charts page. For now, I'm going to leave it a text button, but we can change this text to say bar chart. I'm not going to spend much time. I got to change the background color, right? Whatever. And I now have a button that when I click on it, it'll go to the bar chart page. All right, so that's fantastic. I don't really like these sort of standard buttons that Tableau allows us to use. I mean, it's nice, but they're really squared off and there's really not a lot of design to it. So I like to design my own buttons. I do that in PowerPoint. I design, everybody thinks this is weird, but and this is actually something I learned from Ken a long time ago, is you can draw lots of cool things in PowerPoint and you can bring them into Tableau. So Ken and I worked on a project together where we created 100 different custom buttons where you can go to my Tableau public page. You can download this in PowerPoint and you can use these buttons for your own work, your own Tableau work. Change the text, change the image. We even have toggle buttons and you got your nice custom design button. So that's one thing I like to do, is always replace these kinds of buttons with a nice button out of PowerPoint. Another thing I like to do with buttons is to kind of tell the user, to give the user some information outside of just, navigate here. So here's an example of a visualization I did a while ago. And let me try and move this out of the way and put this in full screen. Trying to hit the button. It's taken far too long. There we go. It's a little bit tall, but this is about Major League Baseball. If you're familiar with Major League Baseball, there are 6 different divisions, 5 different teams in each division. And this was called streaking. It was really looking at win streaks. These longer things are longer win streaks, right? I wanted to be able to allow users to navigate from these different divisions over to other divisions. So this is the American League West, and I wanted them to be able to navigate to American League Central. And I could show sheets when I publish, but I prefer to show buttons. So what I've done is create this kind of little selector here with all the different divisions, and these are just dashboard navigation buttons. But what I've done is change the one on the current page to show in color and the rest to be gray. So in this case, it's really clear that I'm looking at the American League West. But when I click on it, it's actually a button. So when I click on this one, go to American League East, it changes this color, makes it in color, and everything else is grayed out. So I can go to National League Central to see my Cincinnati Reds in last place, right? And we can just clearly see at any given time exactly where we are in our dashboard, and we can see exactly what all the other options are as well. So I think just a really simple, nice way to allow people to navigate and understand at the same time exactly where they're at. Pull this out of full screen. And again, it is taking a long, long time. Not really sure why, but all right. Another thing I like to do is minimize and maximize buttons. I use this constantly at work. So we are used to using Windows where we have these buttons up here where we can say minimize our screen or maximize our screen, just like I did, right? I like to do this in Tableau dashboards, especially at work. I often have, a lot of information in one dashboard, and I want the user to be able to explore that further. I think about scatter plots where they're really small on screen. I want them to just be able to expand it to the entire screen. So I often use what I call just a simple min-max button. So this is another blog post I wrote on a totally different topic. We won't get into that. But what I wanted to allow, there's 9 different versions here of this chart. And what I wanted people to be able to do is zoom in and see it a little bit closer. So I've created these zoom in and zoom out options. Again, for some reason, Tableau is really crawling on me, guys. Let me throw this in. Yeah, apologize. Click that, and you see what we've done is sort of expand that chart and pop it in, pop it out, right? Pop in, pop out. And it works really intuitively, just like we have these sort of min and max windows in on our computers, right? So how do we do that? Well, doing this is super simple. I'm just going to go to this example here. Got rid of those buttons. What I have is just a sort of 9 charts here. I'm just going to get rid of the quadrants I don't want. I should back that up. Sorry, one sec. I'm going to duplicate this first. I want this to seem seamless, so I want all the titles and all the information to be the same. So in the second one, I'm now going to start deleting containers, and I'm going to isolate just this bottom right chart. Second, probably should have staged this for you, so you have to watch me deleting a bunch of stuff. So now what I have is 2 different dashboards. I have this main dashboard, and then I have this secondary dashboard that's just isolating this single chart. So you can pretty much guess what I'm going to do. I'm just going to drag a navigation button on the screen. I'm going to edit that button. I'm going to tell it to navigate to the min-max demo 2. I'm going to change it to an image button. I'm going to come here and choose this pop-out button. And everything's running slow. Apologize for that. I'm not going to take much time to clean that up. Then I'm going to come over to this one, drop in another button, edit that button, min max demo 1 image, and we're going to choose the pop in. All right, and now what we have is a very simple expand and close, minimize and maximize buttons. So again, use this all the time in more work. It does require 2 different dashboards. I will tell you the new version of Tableau allows you to open and close tile containers. So that actually will allow you to close all these ones you didn't want. So there's a lot more options now, but this works really, really great for any versions out, pre 2021.2, which I think most of us are on at work. Another great use for navigation buttons is a table of contents. So at work in April 2020, I was asked to build a unemployment dashboard, US unemployment. We're going to put it on our Tableau public page. And so I started exploring all this different available unemployment data. And I ended up with 18 different dashboards. And I thought to myself, how the heck am I going to have a user navigate between 18 different dashboards? I could have a next button up here. I could have something that expands out and gives them little, like month over month change. But what I really wanted it to be is sort of this visual table of contents. So what I did was create a visual table of contents using dashboard navigation buttons. So let me just show you this. We'll just do a quick demo here. We'll do it with maybe just a couple different dashboards. So if you're not aware, anytime you're on a dashboard, you can go to dashboard, export image. So I did that with these 4 here. And then what I can do is just use these images for dashboard navigation. So let's just throw on a horizontal container. And I'm not going to be very clean about it. I'm going to throw a vertical in here. Not going to be perfect, but we do want to distribute that evenly. Distribute that evenly. Distribute that evenly. Okay. So now what I'll do is just start dropping navigation buttons in here. Put it in the wrong. Yeah, I think I got it. Then all we're going to do is just go set this to navigate to demo TOC1, change this to an image button, go pick that particular image, right? Really simple. Do it again here. Demo TOC2, image, choose the button. I won't make you watch me do it with all these. I'll clean it up. I'll add a clear title at the top. I'll put a little border around that. But as you can see, if we start to build this out, we have this really clean, really easy to use dashboard navigation table of contents. So really, really cool. Now, you might be looking back at this table of contents, and if we know anything about COVID, is what I was going to say. I think everybody knows a lot about COVID. Right in April 2020, unemployment spiked. It went from, in the United States, I think in the 4% range up to 15 or 16%, right? In one month. That was this is initial claims. This is unemployment claims. So unemployment absolutely spiked, and we're now in August of 2021, 15 months after the pandemic started. And I still am showing the spike right at the very end of the chart. Why is that? Well, the reason is I took a screenshot. I exported an image of this dashboard in April 2020. Well, things have changed since then. So some people look at this and they say, well, isn't this deceiving? This is showing the spike at the end of the chart. Well, we're a good year and a half past that, right? So this seems deceiving to my users. Well, my argument would be it's really small. You can't see what's going on. The buttons themselves are made to give you some idea what this chart is showing us, and then you should click it and go to it and discover it for yourself. But if you're concerned about that, you can absolutely create what I call a dynamic table of contents. So we can have these charts update with our data. So I can kind of show you how to do that. Now, when we have a dashboard, what do we add to the dashboard? We add sheets to the dashboard. We don't add other dashboards to the dashboard. I mean, this is showing other dashboards on the dashboard. Well, when we build a dashboard, we add sheets to the dashboard, right? So we can do this using sheets. We can create a dynamic table of contents with dashboard navigation buttons using sheets instead of actual dashboards. So in this dashboard, the main sheet is this. So we'll just use this sheet. And in this dashboard, we could argue which is the main one, but we could pick one or the other. So I'm just going to drag out this one. And again, I'm not going to be super neat about it. And I'll drag out maybe this one here, right? And so you see, we start to see how we're making this almost dynamic table of contents, right? We got a sheet here, it's going to update with our data. We got another sheet here, it's going to update with our data, but I can click all I want and it's not going to that sheet. How do I make it go with a dynamic sheet? How do I make it go to that actual dashboard? Well, I'm going to table that for our next section, and we'll come back to that and we'll answer that very question. All right, so that was kind of simple stuff, just kind of using, visual dashboard navigation buttons. I'm going to get into some kind of stuff that honestly, I think only about 90, maybe 1% of the world's using right now. And those are transparent shapes and images. So first off, what the heck is a transparent shape? Let me go into Tableau. I'll move this out of the way and I'll show you what a transparent shape is. Sorry, this is PowerPoint, not Tableau. I'm just going to go insert shape and I'm going to grab a square and it's going to draw this yellow square on screen, right? Well, if I go up to shape fill and I say no fill, well, the inside of that shape is now transparent. If I go up to shade outline and go no outline, well, that shape has essentially disappeared, but it's not gone. It's still there. You can see I can select it. I can move it around. And what I can do is right click, save as, and I can save this shape anywhere on my computer, right? So I have this shape that exists, but it's kind of, well, it's transparent. You can't see it, right? So you're thinking to yourself, how the heck is something like that useful in Tableau? Well, it is the most versatile tool that I've ever used in all of Tableau. And I'll show you lots of different use cases on how we use it and how we solve different problems. I'm going to start off really, really simple, just to kind of show you how this works. There's times where we create tables just using dimensions, right? Maybe we just want to show some sort of hierarchy. We just need that simple information. We don't need measures on here. So we get, furniture, category, subcategory, manufacturer. And when we build this table just using dimensions, we always get this sort of annoying ABC thing, right? Well, that's there for a reason. I mean, we all know why it's there, but I want to get rid of it. The old trick to getting rid of that I've always used is just change it to a polygon. Boom, it disappears, right? Well, if you like the dashboard or the animation and that came out in early 2020, where you can have these animated transitions as you change filters and as you modify things in the dashboard, well, you can't use polygons. If you have one sheet with a polygon, it's not going to allow your entire dashboard to animate. It just doesn't work. You can't animate polygons. So I've scrapped that trick altogether. So sometimes I like to just change it to text, right? Maybe I'll do what Ken did, just do an inline calculation, put quote there. I'll throw that on the text card. Boom, this thing's gone, right? Well, if I hover over it, there's quote in my tooltip number 1, and then I can still select this weird square. Ken kind of mentioned that on his bands using order of operations. That's just a weird experience for a user, if you ask me. So we'll scrap that. Let's put a circle mark, and maybe we'll, just change the color down to, 0% opacity. Well, you can still see this dot. I can still click on that dot. Like, it's just weird. All right. Maybe this isn't that important to you, but I'm getting to the point of how these are useful. And what I always do for now, since I've learned about transparent shapes, I'll put that color back up, is I change this mark to a shape. I go to shapes. I pick this folder of transparent shapes, assign that, it's gone. If I hover over it, it's not in the tooltip. And the best part of it all is I can't select it. So it's a really, really clean solution to this kind of minor use case, but it's a great solution to a lot more use cases. So at work, we build a lot of different models. We have a data science team that builds models, and the goal is to make things more efficient. So, for example, we have on this axis percentage of accounts, this axis the percentage of profit. If we were to pick randomly, say 30% of our accounts, we would expect 30% of our profit. Well, our models are able to help us increase that. So we are able to pick 30% of our best accounts, and we get that profit to 47%. So I do this type of chart all the time at work for Tableau dashboards, for marketing materials. And what we always do is isolate one percentage. We don't want to try and tell somebody what happens at 40%, what happens at 50%, what happens at 60%. So we always isolate one percentage, and maybe we'll call out at 30%, we can get 47% of the profit. Well, how do we do that? Well, there's lots of different ways you can do that. Ken kind of talked about something similar to this before. We could, I should state first that I've got a sum of profit on as a dual axis, and I have one as a line mark type. I have one as a circle mark type. So how would I isolate just 30%? Well, I may create a calculation that says, well, if the percentage of accounts is 0.3, then yield me the sum of profit. Otherwise, give me a null. And then I would put that up. Here's my dual axis. And then, I kind of do some stuff. Well, truth is, I like things to be the same thing on the dual axis if possible. And we don't need to write a single calculation to make this happen. All we really need to do is put percentage of accounts. Well, first change this to shape, put percentage of accounts onto shape. And then we have all these different shapes here. We can take all these except for 0.3. We change it to a transparent shape. I picked the wrong thing. And boom, we have this. And we can change this really, really quickly. We don't have to change a calculation. We don't have to write any calculation to do that. Just a really quick and easy way to create that chart. You could use Ken's trick of just hiding as well. I often like to just show the last point on a chart, long line chart. I don't think I need these dots everywhere. I just want to show the last point. How might I do that? Well, I might create another calculation that says, we might just say if let me scroll this out. Okay. If the month of the order date equals the fixed max month of the order date, then give me the sum of sales. And then we put that on the dual axis. Again, I just feel like it's overcomplicating things. I can kind of truncate that calculation, just say if the order date, the month of the order date equals the fixed max month of order date, I can just change this to shape, put that calculation onto shape. Now we have a true false, only true when it's the last month, right? So we'll set the falses or the trues to this, the false to this transparent shape. And we quickly have that chart. And again, we just made things a lot more simple by keeping the same pills on the duplicated pills on our dual axis. And we've just made the calculation itself a lot easier. Now, Ken was talking earlier, we've got this weird blue thing, right? We create these bands, we use text, and we get this weird blue highlighting, and it's just an odd experience. So a lot of times what I've done in the past is just float a blank over my bands, right? I don't like that idea because sometimes you want these bands to be interactive. Sometimes by clicking on a band, you want to be able to highlight or filter other parts of your dashboard. So we can fix this weird blue highlighting with, guess what? A transparent shape, right? So I'm going to duplicate this here just so we have it. And you can see if I click even on the sheet, we get that weird highlighting. So how do we do that? Well, you probably guess we're going to first change this to a shape. We're going to change it to a transparent shape. Okay. I think I got it. Maybe I didn't. Hit OK, that disappears. And now as I click it, we still have a little bit of a selection, but we don't have that weird black or blue background. So if I go back to this dashboard, you can see the difference. Here's that weird blue background, and with just a transparent shape, we can have this nice selector here. A lot cleaner look, a lot more, a lot better design for your dashboards. This one comes from Luke Stanky. Luke Stanky also wrote a blog post on transparent shapes and images, lots of different use cases than mine. One of his was looking at sales over time. So he looked at sales in 2020, and he compared them to what sales look like in 2019. So for 2020, phones had the highest sales. In 2020, chairs had the second highest sales. Well, he also wanted to look at how that changed over time. So phones was number 1 in 2020, but it was number 2 in 2019. It moved up 1 spot. Chairs was number 1 in 2019. It moved down 1 spot. Binders, it moved up 3 spots. So he has these sales figures for the current year, and then he has how they've changed over time. Well, we've added these little markers, these little circle marks, and he said, well, maybe we change one of these to, I think he's got that one as the up arrow, right? And this one is the down arrow. So we can really clearly see, okay, this one went up a spot, this one went down a spot, this one went up 3 spots. Well, this one didn't change. This one is 0. What do we do with this thing? Well, we could make it white, I guess, or something like that, but it'll cover up your grid lines. It'll cover up, reference lines. That doesn't really make sense. So let's just change it to a transparent shape. And we have this nice clean look. Up 1, down 1, up 3. This one didn't change, right? So far, I've shown all my different use cases have come with the transparent shape being in the shapes repository. Well, there's also lots of different use cases for transparent images. So images that you bring onto the view and to be used to help you do different kinds of cool things in Tableau. So for example, if I were to write text into Tableau and I were to spell out the entire URL, https://en.wikipedia, blah, 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 it'll turn this into a hyperlink. If I click on this, sure, it hyperlinks to that web page. But we don't see that. I don't ever see websites that spell out the whole entire URL. Ken and I don't do that on our website. We want to really kind of build that in as a hyperlink on a certain word. So what I've done here is I just have normal text. This is normal text. I've just changed the color of it and made it blue, right? So nothing happens here. I can click on this and absolutely nothing happens. But what I can do is use the floating and take an image and float it over the top. I'm going to choose a transparent shape. Get to my shapes here. You see, I use them so much, I even have an @ symbol to bring them to the top. I'm going to say transparent. And what we have here is a target URL. This is the URL open when an image is clicked. So https://tableau.com. If I typed it right, hit OK. And what we now have is something you can't see. If I click away from that, it just looks like text, but what we have is this transparent image on top. You can see my cursor is now turned into this hand. And when I click it, it's going to go to that target URL. I do this on pretty much all my different vizzes that are associated with a blog post. You can click on this to go to the blog post, click on this, go to the blog post. At work, I do it to cite different websites or to go to our own website or to source data. So really great little trick to hyperlink without too much work. Now, you remember the dynamic table of contents I was talking about where we brought these sheets onto the view. We brought these sheets and they're going to update dynamically because that's how we've set it up in our data. But we weren't able to actually click on these to go to a dashboard. Well, we can use these same transparent images to do that. So I've grabbed a dashboard navigation button. I'm going to drop that on top, make that a little bit bigger than the sheet. Edit that. I'm going to set it to go to, looks like page 1, a creative name, image. I'm going to go pick a transparent shape and hit OK. And it's going to take a second on me for some weird reason. All right, so now I have this sheet that's going to update with our data all the time. It's going to be dynamic, but I also have this sort of invisible dashboard navigation button on top of it. So then I can now click on this, go to the dashboard, and if I were to build out 18 of these, like I did for my unemployment dashboard, I would have this dynamic table of contents that the data updates, but also allows me to go click through to the different dashboards associated. I mentioned writing a blog post on this topic. I think I talked about, 14 different use cases for transparent shapes and images. So this little trick I just talked about, I did with this. I wanted this sort of layout for my buttons. I wanted you to be able to click on any of these hex shapes. I could have created an individual hex shape button for this and another one for this or another one for this, or I can just create it all in one background image and then just float buttons on top of it. So that's exactly what I've done here. You can see this is just a transparent shape acting as a button. So when I click on that, I feel like I'm clicking on that little hexagon, but I'm just clicking on this little shape, and that's linking me over to another dashboard. This is something I see all the time. I like to use buttons as kind of selectors. It's more of kind of a UI thing where, I want it to be more intuitive for my users, right? And I don't always want to use filters. Sometimes I just want to use buttons. So here I got a sales by month chart, and I allow the user to pick a button to click what year it is. So right now it's set on 2019. Say I wanted 2017. All right, it filters the chart using a parameter action. But I don't know if you noticed, but this is it's really weird looking. It really fades this out to almost to where I can't see it. And then I get this sort of weird outline here, right? There's a bunch of different tricks to doing it, but my favorite trick is to just use a transparent shape. So what I've done is allow those same parameter actions set up in the background, and I have these same buttons in the background. But if I move this, what you'll see is I have another sheet floating on top of it. What is this sheet showing me? Well, I have a 2016 button, a 2017 button, a 2018, 2019 button. But instead of these buttons here, I'm using that transparent shape. And as I showed you before in the ABC, dimension table and with the bands, when you click one of these, you can't actually click it. It doesn't actually select. So I can click here. It's going to feed 2019 into that parameter. It should. It's going to feed 2019 in that parameter, and it's going to highlight that button. But since I'm not actually clicking on those weird buttons, I'm not getting that weird selection like I got over here. I'm clicking on the transparent button. You still get that same feel. It's just a lot cleaner look. I wrote a blog post back in 2018, 6-7 months after I started using Tableau. It was called No Polygons. I'm not going to get the details of it, but it uses a transparent shape in that trick. Ken has a blog post on a scrollable timeline. He uses a transparent shape. And recently I did something called the Data Fam Finder. This is right when things started to open back up, and I was hopeful that we'd all be traveling again. And I was thinking, what if I traveled to Australia? Hopefully that's in the future. Chris and I have talked about that several times, but if I were to travel to Australia, who's in Australia that I know? Who could I go have dinner with if I went to, whatever town, right? So I built this Data Fam Finder. People can register their name. If they click in an area, it actually shows this buffer calculation. You can set the distance, and it gives you a list of people in that area. So we see some of the people on our call here today, right? So how did I do that? If you notice, I kind of just clicked out in the middle space. So how can I be clicking on a mark that doesn't exist? Let me just show you that. When you click on a mark in Tableau, if I click on a scatter plot, I got to click on one of those marks. I can't just click out in space. Here is an example without the little trick. And if I click in Brazil, nothing's happening. If I click in Australia, nothing's happening. I have to click on one of these marks to make something happen. Well, what I did is go out and get a list of over 26,000 cities in the entire world. I loaded those into a Google Sheet. And then I allowed users to register their names, and it just kept appending, kind of unioning up to that Google Sheet. And then I said, okay, if this is an actual registered name, make the dot red and circular. And if it isn't, if it's nobody's registered their name to that city, then we'll just make it a transparent shape. And I'll show you what this looks like. I'm going to edit this shape here and just make this a star. So if I change that transparent shape to the star mark, you can see I've got these marks all over the place. But if I back that out and use a transparent shape, you can't see it. So what this allows me to do is essentially allows a user to click anywhere in the world, feeds those Latin long values into a parameter. Sometimes it takes a little while. And then it draws a buffer calculation, and it does a distance calculation, and it tells me everybody in that general area. And on Tableau Public, you can actually click this button and download this full list. So this one uses more transparent shapes than I've ever used. It uses about 26,500 transparent shapes. All right, that's a lot. Again, if you want to read more about this stuff, you can certainly go to our website, flerlagetwins.com, and just go to techniques, .html. That'll link you to, I think, 6 or 7 other blog posts, the transparent shapes being one of them, where you can kind of get dig more into the details of it. So, all right, that's it. Happy to take questions if we have time for that. Chris, let us know.
Hey, Kevin, just one thing I wanted to mention in the chat. There was talk about when you were doing the table of contents. Someone mentioned row security and not wanting to use screenshots because of that. And so I thought your technique was also really good for that, because it's going to show the actual chart, and any row security that's on those views will automatically be applied. So they're going to get sort of their own custom thumbnail there.
Perfect sense. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's a little bit hard to, like, I'm very lucky I've got multiple screens because I don't know, I was sort of trying to keep track of the presentation, but also in the chat, everyone's coming up with other things. And I don't know if Ken actually learnt things in the chat while Kevin was presenting, but Kevin's answering questions while Ken's presenting. It's just like, it's just crazy to sort of, you know, it's always the same thing, the accumulated amount of knowledge of everybody to just learn more stuff and get more stuff done. So it's ridiculous. Yeah, it's very good, awesome, always good to watch you guys present.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome.
Thanks so much, guys. You know, we are so grateful as well. And just to everyone, in case you had any questions, there are a lot of questions going on throughout the presentation in the Q&A. So many people actually ask, will this be available, or is it, you know, will there be a recording, or will we be able to get the workbook? So the workbook's not going to be released at this stage, from what I understand from one of the responses, but you can catch up on the TUG video, which we should be releasing sometime in the next couple of days. So if you're like me, there was so much going on that I got a little bit, I was like trying to watch everything all at once. Definitely a good opportunity to re-review it and go back. But really grateful, guys. Thank you.
Thank you
for having us.
Awesome. And now we'll move on to our next presentation, which is 1 year in Tableau team. Margarita, I think you want to introduce this and take it from here.
Yes, that's right. And just to echo everybody's sentiments, thank you so much for that presentation. I was similar to Fee. I was trying to follow the Q&A and in the chat, but also follow the presentation and also test it out. So my brain is exploding right now, but I'm really looking forward to this next section. We know that it's been an interesting year or 2 years here, just around the world, I guess, with the way that sometimes you have to onboard new Teamsters, or how to get into new career or industries. So our next panel is hoping to share some of those experiences. We've got Anita, Prerna, and Maria, who are both, I guess, fairly new, or about a year or so in to being part of the wider data analytics and visualization community. And we asked them if they could share some of their experiences with us, excuse me, as well as some of their tips around how they managed to, I guess, settle in and also embrace the world of data. So I will ask a few questions around the panel, but also if you've got your own, please feel free to pop them into the Q&A. So we'll just get straight onto it. And just as an introduction, so I'm Margarita. I am one of the Sydney Tableau User Group co-coordinators, but I've also had the pleasure of working with these 3 wonderful people over the last few years. So we'll open up with Anita. So Anita, could you maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, how you sort of moved into the data and analytics career path that you're on now?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Margarita. So before this role, I was working as an orthoptist. So for a couple of years, But then I realized that I was looking for something a little bit more challenging. So I decided to pursue a career in analytics because it's a field that is ever evolving and where you're constantly learning new skills and taking on a variety of challenges. So after some research and a lot of courage, I quit my job as an orthoptist and enrolled myself into a 3-month data science bootcamp, which was followed by an internship. So where I learned a lot about visualization and gained some technical experience in SQL. So during that time, I was also doing a lot of self-learning in SQL, Python, and Tableau on several websites like Code Academy, Udemy, you name it, everything. So all that helped me land this role at this institution. So everyone around me has been really helpful. So I've learned a lot in this role. So it's been great. Thanks.
Thanks, Anita. And I might turn now to Maria. So I understand you've transitioned from a different industry as well yourself, from is it the legal and policy world? But what made you choose to move into being a visual analyst? And what were the steps that you took when you made that decision?
Yeah, thanks, Margarita. My background is, as you say, pretty non-technical. So my first degree was in arts law, and yeah, I also was really interested in graphic design as well. So I studied that because I was really interested in visual and creative side of things too. And while I was in a legal role, I realized that showing people visual summaries could help them see patterns more clearly across lots of different information. And this could be really useful because it helped persuade them to reach certain conclusions. And in addition, as you've mentioned, I've worked in government policy where I saw how important data analysis is to drive evidence-based decision-making, which can impact people's lives in significant ways. So it was through these experiences that I became very interested in learning more about data analysis and visualization. And to learn more about the field, I started listening to podcasts and interviews of people already in the field and the projects that they were working on. I then started a master's in data science and then applied for some jobs in data viz and found an opportunity to work in the visualization role at my current workplace.
Wonderful, thanks, Maria. And it's good that you've mentioned the impact that blogs and podcasts have made on you. If people here in the audience or the wider group, if you do have some blogs that you follow or podcasts other than the amazing website from Kevin and Ken that we just saw just then, please feel free to share them through the chat as well so that the rest of the folks can have a look at those. I might now turn to you, Prerna. So you've got a slightly different pathway again. You've had a previous life in ETL, so a very strong data background.
Yeah.
What made you choose to go into like self-service and enablement?
So in my previous role, in all my previous roles, I've been a part of a data team. And in the role before this one, I was the engagement point of contact, which meant that I was working with the stakeholders to understand what our current data assets were not able to, provide them with the answers they were looking for or the problems they were trying to solve. And while working with them, I did realize that sometimes there is so much information available, but people do not have access to it or vision to it. And that's why they're not able to get the right information at the right time. Sometimes it's just because there's no dashboard sitting on top of a data connection, or sometimes if the dashboard is available, they have trouble interpreting the metrics. So when this role was offered to me, I literally jumped at it and I was like, yes. And because it just meant that I'm working with the same or similar set of stakeholders, but now I'm trying to enable them to access information rather than looking at the requirements only. So yeah.
Thanks so much. And I guess you're all part of the same team, but just looking after slightly different perspectives of working with Tableau, I guess. What would a typical day be like in 3 sentences? So I'll go around the table and I'll start off with you, Maria.
Sure. So I am more in the dashboarding stream of things, but our team, there's a lot of crossover. So each day can be quite different. At I guess I would say maybe 20% of the time I'm in meetings with stakeholders to elicit their business questions and requirements for dashboards. And then around 40% of the time is in designing and actually building those dashboards. So we would try to match what stakeholders want to see from the data with the features and capabilities available in Tableau to try to build informative visualizations. And we collaborate closely with the data team who manage the data connections too. And then finally, around 30% of the time would be helping to organize Tableau education in our organization and assisting with Tableau questions on our internal forums and through emails.
And what about yourself, Anita?
Yeah, so like Maria said, there's a lot of collaboration going on in the team. So along with that, my main role is to help ensure that we continue to uplift the Tableau capability at the wider group. So the typical day would usually consist of helping out with one of these uplift projects. So for example, recently we enabled extract encryption on Tableau server to enable that extra data security layer to protect sensitive data. Along with that, there's always behind the scenes work going on to carry out Tableau server and desktop upgrade. So there's a lot of planning going on that. So this usually takes about months of planning. And lastly, supporting users with their queries related to Tableau, whether it be permissions or dashboard work if we can help, and also managing desktop licenses. So a variety of these tasks during the day for me. Thank you.
Yeah.
And yourself, Prerna?
And for me, it's usually a mix of structured or unstructured sessions. So working with the stakeholders, helping them self-serve information. Part of the day would be answering queries that come through our data doctor channels or Tableau doctor channels. And the rest would probably be making sure that we have enough support resources lined up for people who have attended those sessions so that they can go back and review those. So yeah.
Thanks. And that's a really good point that, such distinct streams probably all have their own set of podcasts or thought leaders as well. So again, if there's any that you follow, particularly for Tableau server upgrades, which is a topic very close to Anita's heart, pop them in the chat as well. We'd love to hear about them. But now looking back to the last year or the first year of working in this stream, I know it's not normally how we might have done it. A lot more virtual in Teams calls than what it would have been like starting at in a new team. So what were 2 things that you learned? So I might start off the other way around and start off with you, Prerna.
2 things I would say I learned was be patient and remind people to be patient with themselves, because there is a learning curve involved. So when you're taking someone through their Tableau journey, just remind them that it will take time. The tools probably that they're already using or the ways that they have been using, they've made a habit out of it, and it's basically cultivating a new habit. So reminding people to be patient, and I would say keeping it simple and making it relevant. So when I'm running a structured session, I would not overwhelm everyone with a lot of information, because that just acts as, it just scares people off. So just keep it simple and make sure that you keep the content relevant to what they would understand and what their interest is in. So yeah, those are the 2 things.
And Maria, did you have anything to add there? And then followed by Anita.
Yeah, so maybe for me, I learned that the hardest part of dashboarding is learning how to actually distill those business questions from stakeholder requirements in order to build a dashboard with actionable insights. And also just, as many of you already, everyone probably already knows, but there are many great resources out there which can help you keep you inspired on your learning journey. And conferences such as the Tableau ones. And I also really enjoyed the DataVis Society conference called Outlier, which showcases the breadth and depth of visualization out there.
Great points, Maria and Prerna. So I'd like to add just something simple. So I would say what I learned was like, don't be afraid to ask questions. You always learn something new, and always do something that challenges you. It will not only open new opportunities for you, but you'll again learn something new with every challenge.
Thank you. And I guess this the follow-up one is just a reflection on what you might have or would you have told if you were onboarding yourself, what advice would you have given in the first 2 to 3 weeks, other than get ready for watching lots of training videos and onboarding videos?
I can go first. Well, I think for me, just knowing that it might be a steep learning curve, but you'll also learn so much on the job from your colleagues around you and from the resources available, and you'll get there.
So I would say setting up small goals and celebrating each victory will help you gain, enhance your motivation and boost your self-confidence.
Both good points, and I would just say for me, I would probably tell myself to ask the stakeholders what is the business problem that they are trying to solve, rather than just jumping in and helping them draw that number out of a data connection. Because I think most of the requirements come in a way where people are like, can I get this number? So rather than pushing back and letting them think of what's the problem they're trying to solve, because there are so many other ways of reaching to that particular number, so to say.
And the last question I've got for this panel, and please, if anybody does have other questions for Anita, Prerna, or Maria, please pop them into the Q&A, is now that you've been using Tableau for about 1 to 2 years, if there was a feature that you would ask for, what would it be? While we've got the people listening here.
I'll take that. So I don't have any particular feature, but I know that I keep going to the community and look at the feature recommendations and keep on voting to get my favorite one up. But I'm really keen to listen to what Anita and Maria have to say on this one.
Yeah, so I was recently working on dashboard alerts, and I thought to myself, oh, it would be nice if there was an alert for keywords. I'm not sure if it's possible, but it will be nice. I'll make sure to add that to the on the page you were saying, Prerna.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, as for me, I just looking forward to really trying out the collections feature, which is in the newest version of Tableau, which hopefully will be able to help with dashboard discoverability across teams, because it helps to organize and share content on Tableau server across key topics. So.
Wonderful. I might wrap it up there. So it was short and sweet, but it was so lovely to hear from all of you, and thank you for sharing some of your insights. I know it will be very useful for us, especially as a few of our audience here, as well as our TUG co-coordinators. We're all trying to learn ways that we could support our own teams. So I might hand over at this stage back to you, Chris.
Sorry, I was too busy chatting on the chat. Okay, I'll just share my screen again because I've got the slide up, and then say, obviously, the short break now for our prizes. So we did announce at the beginning to stay around for our prize. Our prize was for the person who is in attendance and was closest to our 500th registration in this meeting. That list has obviously been changing as we go because of people obviously only can attend for a short time or not. But our winner is Sasis, if I've pronounced it properly. I know how to spell it, but I don't know how to say it properly. So Sasis, I'm hoping that you can hear this, and I'm hoping that you can actually chat in the chat right now. And if you can, the prize is yours. And we'll wait a few minutes for that to occur. Yes, there you go. So we'll be in touch with you to arrange that prize pack. We don't know exactly what you'll get at the moment because that's a bit of a surprise as well, but we'll be in touch. We'll get your email and contact details and send you out something. Again, because of lockdowns, it may not be ultraly fast, you know, this week, have it by Friday type thing, but we will get something to you as quick as we can. So congratulations on that. Thank you. That's basically the end of the presentations for today, but obviously at the end of every meeting, we have a who's hiring section. So if you're looking for work, there's QR codes or some links here. It depends if you're in Brisbane or Victoria or New Zealand. So there's jobs going all over the place, obviously. If you are looking for people to employ, join the TUG, the Sydney Tableau user group LinkedIn group. And if you're looking to recruit some people, that's probably the best place for them as well. And or obviously take note of those QR codes if you're in Brisbane or Victoria and looking for jobs around that, around those locations as well. And if you haven't got those QR codes, we can come back to it as well. And so I'd just like to thank everyone for attending today. Obviously, Ken and Kevin are a big draw card, and you know I was busy taking notes and reading the chat and learning things from all over the place. It's definitely something that can help me with other Tableau things as well. For everyone, this recording will be made available fairly soon, and we'll send that link around. There's a New Zealand role in the chat as well for people who are talking about New Zealand. And if you want to present at a future TUG, you know, we recommend, you know, you can present at any level of knowledge or the level of knowledge that you're at the moment. So you don't need to be Zen Master and Ambassador to present. You can present what you know in Tableau, and that always helps other people as well. So you don't have to be at that level to present, but it's nice when we can get those guys from the US as well to teach us. We've also got an Adelaide TUG coming up soon, so don't forget to register for that. Full details on the Tableau website, or hunt down someone to help you with that link. Again, it's an online meeting, so everyone can join from around the country. And I think that's about it. Thank you for the ladies on the second section of the presentation, because obviously the birthday boys have already gone to celebrate their birthday with their family. So I don't know if we can open up the chat to everybody, but I'm happy to stay online for a while and chat in a text style until the numbers drop off a bit. But we'll probably stop the recording fairly soon, and we can switch over to whoever wants to stay around and talk.
Thank you, Fred.